Welcome to One-on-One. I'm Greg Bassey, your host for the Salisbury Independent newspaper. It's a big day here at PAC 14. We're continuing our election series where we're interviewing candidates for the county elections. And today we have Alan Brown, who's running for school board in District 1. Welcome, Mr. Brown.
Thank you for having me.
Now, you're an incumbent. You're on the school board. You were just recently appointed about a year ago to the school board. You worked for the Board of Education for a million years. How long were you there?
40 years.
40 years. About as long as you can work for them. So you know the system. You're seeing it now on both sides as someone who leads the system and leads it from inside. What's it like?
Well, for one thing, I'm actually born in Wicomico County and went through the public school system here. So it's a good school system. A couple of things I found out that with the school system as it is today, it's grown and it's going to continue to grow. Sure, there are problems, but if you look around and if you see some of the kids and students who have graduated from Wicomico County schools, they've done very well and are doing good things, and many of them are giving back to the community here, but too many of them are leaving here and going other places when they've graduated from the school system.
Right. I was one of those people who for years was very critical of the school system, but then my kids, and I'm a product of the same Wicomico school system, which is one reason I was probably critical of it. But anyway, but once my kids got in there, I realized that we have a really good school system. They were able to get out of it everything they needed and they wanted. They were challenged well along the way. I was just very impressed.
Now, we have probably one of the better school systems in Maryland because we look at each child individually as a different style of learning. They're all different individuals. And we have kids who have gone to some of the best colleges in town and other places. And we've have kids who have actually gone out into the world of work and done extremely well. So we've been able to prepare kids to either become ready to go to college or to go into some type of career field or even the military. And one of the things that the school system does is trying to prepare kids who can actually reach their full potential and do something that's meaningful to them and giving back to the community as well.
Who was the first superintendent that you worked for?
Royd Mahaffey.
So you were here for Mr. Mahaffey?
I was here when Mr. Mahaffey was here.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just doing the history column the other day, and it was when he became ill, and then I guess he actually died while he was in office. But they showed a picture of him leaving his house, and he lived right there across the street from Y High, which I did not know. And he walked down the street to work every day to the school board. Yeah. And one of the jokes was there was never a snow day because Mr. Mahaffey could walk from his house. He didn't know what the roads were like out there at all, but the schools were always open.
Yeah, and it was interesting during those times, they kind of looked at each individual and they would come to you and said, I've just appointed you to this, or I need to move you from this school to that school, because they were looking out for the whole community and the school system. If they needed a Latin teacher at a particular school, then you were going to go there.
Right.
You really didn't have much to say about it because he wanted to do the very best that he could for the school system.
And who was superintendent when you became assistant superintendent?
When I became assistant superintendent, it was Bill Middleton.
Bill Middleton, who was a great guy, and we miss him a lot.
Yeah.
He worked very hard in there.
Bill, who's a local boy.
Yeah.
Actually, Bill was in the personnel department when I was first hired to work in Wicomico County as a school teacher. And when I worked with Bill as assistant superintendent, there were two other individuals, Tom Field and Charlie Bounds, and Bill and myself. And I thought we were a great team. We did lots of things. Everybody knew their job. Everybody respected one another's opinions. And whenever the other needed a help in the area of whatever it was that we were working in, we were together on it. And we did it extremely well during those years Bill was a superintendent.
And the personalities were just different enough that it made a real team.
Correct.
Yeah, that's very interesting. What was the first school that you worked in?
The first school I worked with was North Salisbury.
Okay.
It's kind of interesting. I had worked the summer there at Deer's Head Hospital, which is right around the corner from there. And of course I went in, I put in my application and that type thing, and I talked to Mr. Mahaffey. And he said, I don't have a school for you right now, but I can tell you we'll give you a job teaching at an elementary school. Well, about 2 hours later, I got a call at Deer's Head and said, you have a phone call from the superintendent. And I went and answered the phone, and he said, I've just assigned you to North Salisbury Elementary School. Do you know where it is? I said, yes, I
can walk
ride
there.
by it every day
Right.
going to work. And so I went over and met with the principal there. At that time was Miss Rebecca Parrott.
Yeah.
And from there, we went
She's
on.
legendary.
Yes,
Yes.
she is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you really have you've committed your entire life to our county school system.
The school system has been good for me. It's afforded me a lifestyle that I like, a lifestyle that's been able to help provide for my family. I can go on vacation.
Right.
I can pay my bills. I have a little bit of money in the bank, so it's really been a good for me.
And your late wife inspired hundreds of people. She's a legendary as well within the system. Just a tremendous teacher.
Yes, and she ended her career when she was at vice principal at East Salisbury Elementary School.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember her there. What's it like for you now when because you've been here from the beginning, basically, to go into a school like James M. Bennett High School and to see what we have now, just the opportunity these kids have to have a great environment to learn in. How does it make you feel?
I feel fantastic. For one of the things, even since I've been retired, I get to go to the schools quite often because of Rotary and a few other things that I'm involved in. And for example, each year I get to go to all the third grade classes in town. We give out dictionaries to all of them. So I get to walk around and see the kids. And I guess the most amazing thing, it's like anything else in our society, is the technology that's in the schools today. But the sad part, I think, is having to see a resource officer, a policeman with a gun in the school. The only time we ever saw one when I was in school was career day.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Does it trouble you, the whole security in the schools issue was real big, certainly this last spring. There was an incident out on the east side, got on social networking, a lot of things were misreported. I know the school board takes all that very seriously. But how hard of an issue is the school security issue?
The school security issues, probably, if you look at the first 2 or 3 things that's up on top that's concerned, safety is one of them.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate that we have to spend the dollars that we do to provide that kind of service to the school system, because it surely could be used for something else to help educate the kids. But the school system does take it very seriously. We now have most of the schools where when you enter, you can only enter from one entrance. There are cameras everywhere. So it's pretty much what we need and have to have because of what's happening in our communities.
Right. Being a school board member now, does it affect your vision for the long term? Do you well, before you were you offered your vision to your supervisors within the system. Now you're sort of in the system but external, and you can have like a different kind of vision. Are you able to do that, to offer different ideas than you could before?
It's not as different as people might think. You're still trying to do the very best for each individual student that you can. One of the things that we have to think a lot about right now is the funding. As a board member, you have to be considerate of the tax dollar. You have to make sure that you spend it in the most economic and beneficial way. But when you're in the school system as an educator, you want the very best.
Right.
So you're going to ask for pie in the sky. But then it's up to the board, along with the superintendent's assistant, to kind of look at what's really needed at most and what can we get the best bang for our buck. And that's one of the things that it's a little bit different from what I was doing before.
Right. How do we get people to understand that element? They don't understand what schools should be or could be, or even what they are. They have a mindset of when they were in school. So increased spending, the new buildings, they seem opposed to it. How do we get them educated in what the potential is here?
Well, you ask them to look at the things that are surrounding them. Ask them what happens when they walk into a grocery store now as to compared 10 years ago.
Right.
Ask them what happens when they go shopping compared to 10 years ago. And they see that the technology that's being used, it's cost. Everything that you do now is costing. One of the other things that we have to do is providing for many of the kids who are physically are challenged in terms of disabilities. Once upon a time, most of those kids were placed somewhere else, but now they're mainstream into the regular school system. And again, the cost of educating a special needs student is a lot more expensive than a regular ed kid. And by law, that's what we have to do.
It's better for everyone.
It
It's
is.
important for us to spend that money because we have to, because it's better for everyone.
It's better for everyone.
This last budget cycle, we saw something new in the county, I think, where businesses, some of the county leaders wanted to spend more money on schools. And there was like a movement of that, putting pressure on the politicians to spend more money, really embracing the school board's dreams, superintendent's dreams, or three-prong policies. Did that impress you? Were you surprised by that? I mean, they actually, in the end, the county council actually raised the maintenance of effort.
I'm really not surprised, but happy to see it. I think one of the things that's happening now is that more and more agencies and businesses are coming to the aid of the schools. Once we were divorced from them, it was just monies coming from the county. But now we're getting partnerships with faith-based organizations, with Rotary Clubs and the VFWs and American Legions and organizations like that, the Purdue Company. They're now allowing their employees time to go in and mentor with kids. And all that's important. It's becoming really like a village and everybody's playing a part. So,
Right.
And I think the county council is now stepping up, and we really appreciate what they have done in the last few years toward giving a little more to the school system to try to help them provide.
And
what
this
they
year was
need.
only $500,000, but for them, that's
When you look at the budget in total,
Right.
it's not much.
It's not even a
but-
drop.
Right, but it's amazing what you can do with that little bit of money
Right.
for a number of kids.
And then there's people who point to the maintenance of effort. They're like, well, we're doing maintenance of effort. We're doing okay. But that's a C. That's basic. It's not really what we might, not meeting the potential that we have.
Yeah, that's correct. Again, looking at the dollars that you receive, you have to try to figure out the best possible way to spend those. And when you know you're going to get maintenance of effort and maybe a little bit more, then that's what you have to work within those parameters.
The school system's changed so much in just 10 years. Physically, in terms of the kids' performance is much better. That's great. The scores are up. What do you see the system being in 10 years from now?
In 10 years from now, if we can get universal kindergarten, where we have kids when they enter kindergarten and first grade ready to learn, that's going to be a big plus factor. It'll have those kids, by the time they're in third grade, they'll be working at grade level. And from there, they have to, succeed, and they're going to move forward. And I can see that we're going to have our graduation rate that's going to increase. Kids are going to stay in school much longer because many of them drop out simply because they don't have the skills that they need. They feel left out. And so rather than stay in there and fight and try to get themselves up to par, they just drop out. So we're
What's our number now? Like 91% or 83%?
for
Graduation rate.
Graduation rate's about 83, 84%.
Okay.
Now that was last year. We don't
Right.
have this year's figures yet.
And the state average is 91?
State average.
Right. And the superintendent goal is 92.
Correct.
How do you feel about her? A lot of people like her. Our
Well,
superintendent.
she has three things going for her that's fantastic. Number one, she's a product of the school
Right.
system. She's born and reared here. Number two, she has a good vision for the future and the school system. And number three, she knows how to say no to folks and get them to understand why she's saying no. So the mannerism in which she deals with the public and with the outside agencies is really amazing. And she can ask for things, and they're going to try the best they can to provide her with those things that she's asking for. So those three things are really good for her.
It must be interesting for you because you sat there with Mr. Middleton and Dr. Frederickson and watched them do their jobs for so long, right there by their side. And you know the pressures that she's under probably more than anybody.
Yeah. One of the things that's kind of interesting, I was on one of the teams that hired her as a vice principal here and then as a principal. So we often joke about that.
How can people get a hold of you if they want to ask you more questions and find out more about Alan Brown?
Well, like most people now, I have an email address.
That's progress.
Yeah, and I'm still one of those rare individuals whose name is in the phone book, so all they have to do is look at the phone book and you can get a hold of me. And as a matter of fact, I'd rather talk to folks on the phone. I like having that personal touch where you can talk, and then if we need to meet and have a cup of coffee and talk about something, we can go to the bagel shop. Yeah.
Excellent. He's Alan Brown. He's on our school board. He's a school board member, a career devoted to making our kids smarter. We can't thank him enough, and we're just thrilled that he was here with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
I'm Greg Bassett from the Salisbury Independent newspaper, another special election edition of One-on-One here on PAC 14. You can see all of these interviews on YouTube. We have them archived there. You can get to that from a link on the PAC 14 website, or go to YouTube, to the PAC 14 section on YouTube, and watch all these interviews. A lot of great information out there to help you decide who to vote for.
First Shore Federal is proud to support PAC 14 and One-on-One. We'd encourage every business to support PAC 14 and pick a program and support it, and let's make a difference.